Hey guys, how you doing? This is Momo, and you are listening to the Dingwall podcast, where I talk to the world's hottest, most innovative, creative bass players in the entire world. And today's guest is none other than Jacob Umansky. He's a Dingwall artist. He also loves dark glass. He's a neural guy. Plays some kind of crazy progressive metal with his power trio called Gia. As well, plays in this super syncopated kind of slap you in the face project called Intervals. Hey Jacob, bro, how you going?
I'm good, man. That was quite the intro. I love that. I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, brother. So nice to see you on this lovely day. And
yes,
really, podcast for Dingwall. Is this brand new? It just came out. It's so good to have a guy who I've seen beat the whack out of his bass and do it oh so well. So I want to talk to you about a couple of things. I was reading that when you were touring with Interval, you played in the Heavy Montreal Festival. Now, that's my hometown. So when I saw that, I figured, It also says that when you were here, you were touring kind of, I guess, opening up or playing with Slipknot, Marilyn Manson, Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
What I want to know is when you were actually doing that thing, did you get to hang out or see any of the madness that was actually going on with these guys? These are great musicians, but they're freaking hardcore, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, when you're part of the festival, you get those passes so you can kind of like move around the back areas of the festival to get from point A to point B quicker. But we didn't really run into anybody too crazy. I remember we went to go watch Limp Bizkit, and I just saw like Fred Durst backstage before he goes on, just like looking down from the stage, just probably having like his, I don't know, just like his like pre-show meditation, and I was like, oh shit, that's Fred Durst, that's crazy. And then he just goes off and they just start going right into like break stuff, and I was like, man, that guy's so sick. At the festivals, during the day it gets pretty chill. At night, especially if you get to play festivals where your homies are playing, then it gets a bit rowdy. But at this one in particular, it was just, I wanted to watch Marilyn Manson, I wanted to watch all these guys, I wanted to watch Limp Bizkit. So yeah, it was more of just me going to a concert, and the fact that we played earlier in the day was just a bonus.
Yeah.
I did work at a festival when I was a bit younger, and I was a stagehand, and I got to see Marilyn Manson's dressing room that he destroyed the night before. So that was really cool.
Oh, great. Well, that's it. I was hoping that you got to at least
I thought I'd bring that up.
Experience something, because I can only imagine like those three bands like kind of like in the same place on the same day or the same evening.
Yeah.
And oh my God, like shit could roll to know, I love them. They're some of my biggest influences in the way they kind of torture the sound and bring it into, I've always been a big fan of like, I don't want to say the word pop, but there's a pop side to a lot of that stuff that I appreciate. Oh,
for sure, dude. It's all radio friendly. Absolutely.
When they get the hybrid like that and put in the pop so that at least you can't get the riffs out of your head, those choruses are ripping around. Doesn't matter whether you're taking your morning dump or you're freaking, walking down the street making love, that riff is still playing in your head. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. One of the first heavy riffs I learned that I was like, shit, I just want to play metal now was The Beautiful People.
Oh!
Yeah, dude. Like, I remember, because I think I was maybe around like 11 or 12.
Okay.
And so I've had a bass in my hand since I was about like 8 or 9, but like wasn't like good, but I could get around on the instrument, and I was kind of finding my way and seeing what I like. And I was introduced to this song, but I don't even remember who, but I was so in love with The Beautiful People. And like, I just remember my dad walked upstairs one morning and was like, are you playing Marilyn Manson? And I was like, yeah, I'm playing Marilyn Manson. And 2, I was really stoked that my dad recognized that song. I'm like, oh, that's awesome that you know who that is. A lot of those riffs, like Marilyn Manson, like Break Stuff, like by Limp Bizkit, that was like, an introduction to 7-string guitar for me too. So like a lot of that stuff, even though can be seen as like silly and a bit, I don't know, it can seem like a lot. Like it had a lot of influence on me from, as a musician too.
Right on. Okay. I want to talk to you a bit about your project Gia. It really reminds me of like some kind of Linkin Park mixed with Limp Bizkit, even some kind of POD if they were ejected into outer space, and then they came back years later with this total hybrid kind of music. So, like, am I hearing this kind of right? This is part of your...
I definitely, like, from a songwriting standpoint, in the sense that, like bands like Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit can be seen as, like, metal, but they still write radio-friendly music. Like, that, I think, can be attributed to what we're doing, because we're trying to write, like, this, kind of like complex progressive music, but also have like hooks and like stuff that makes it like radio friendly. So in that sense, I think, there's a lot that goes into like our influences. Like our piano player has like his master's in classical composition, I believe. My other guitar player has a performance degree from Berkeley, and he's just Ivan is probably one of them, arguably the most insane guitar player I know. So yeah, the influences are, it's too many to name, but I think I know what you mean when you say that. Yeah.
Like I said, I've always been a big fan of people who understand how to carve and cut out music that really takes you for a classical ride. You know what I mean? There's all the kind of aspects of a little bit of jazz, a little bit of rock, a little bit of funk, a little bit of all that shit. And you can tell when somebody's had a nice diet of education when it comes to things, and it looks like you've practiced your freaking ass off to get to this point. Because I don't even know how you remember half the shit you play. I gotta tell you.
I think the most important thing is like you know regarding like education and on all that stuff. Like I have a background in like musical theory, and I studied that in school, and like all of my bandmates have done that in GIA. But I think the most important thing is that you don't look at it as like you're writing because of this. Like you use like music theory and like your knowledge of harmony as just like tools, the same way as you would use like slap bass as a tool. Like that's just another tool in your arsenal of, songwriting or techniques. It's not something that you should be writing music like solely based on. If someone says like, oh, like what's your favorite mode to write music in? It's like, what? No, that's not how I think at all. But I hope that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so now GIA, is this considered a trio, right?
Yeah. So the idea was like I was in this other band, and then we left and wanted to do our own thing for reasons I won't get into. But the idea was like the three of us loved writing music together, and we started writing these songs, and we were looking into like getting other members, getting a drummer, getting a singer. And we just kind of thought like, well, we have extremely talented friends, and we just write these songs, and maybe we'll pitch it out, get it out to them and see what they'll do with it. And the idea was kind of like, Snarky Puppy? How like,
of course.
Yeah, of course. So my thought was like, since we're doing the lockdown, and since we're, live music isn't really like a thing at the moment, we could kind of approach it as like, we write the skeleton of the music, and we'll send it out to whoever we think fits the song best, and they'll add their element to the music. That's kind of what it's been so far. We've been lucky enough. We've got Casey Sable, who used to sing for the band Periphery, Mike Lassard, who sings for the band The Contortionist, Matt Garska on drums, and another one of our songs features Anoop Sastry, Victor Borba, who is another extremely talented vocalist. So it's just been like we're writing the music, and then a lot of the times we have like a vocalist or someone in mind that will be like, oh, we should get this guy on that tune. We've been able to get, I guess, the vision of all of these songs. We were able to realize all of them. So it's been really cool. And, when live music comes back, we'll have to have another conversation. But I have plenty of drummers, and we have some vocalist guys in mind. The project is still in the evolution phase, but we just wanted to, release music and say, hey, this is what we've been up to since we left this band. Like, enjoy. We'll see you soon. That's kind of just what it's been so far.
So you guys, with all this list of phenomenal guys that you've been naming, you just released a single called Drift, where you have Casey and Matt that's on that particular song, right? I was listening to that, and it was like, whoa, some serious ass production going down there. Let's talk a little bit about Drift there. What's going on with that?
Regarding the production aspect, our keyboard player, Alan, is an absolute wizard with sound design and just overall composition in general. So I have to give him a lot of the credit for that. As well as our guitar player, Ivan. He is an unbelievable producer as well, and contributes really cool ideas like that, not just guitar related stuff. Those two are more so on the production aspect of it. I'm more so like, I kind of describe what I'm hearing, and the both of them have the capability to just kind of make it happen. It's mainly those guys who do the production stuff.
That's amazing. So it stays all in house within the project. And in the old days, you'd have to send everything out. Oh, who's gonna get the mix, engineer, the mastering, la la la. This is great, bro. Okay.
Yeah, we're really lucky. They're extremely talented guys, and like, yeah, the way it works is like, you know, two of us or the three of us will write the skeleton, and then we'll, you know, send files back and forth. I mean, that's how we've been doing it in the lockdown anyway. Can't really get in the same room, but we'll send files back and forth, and then the production stuff usually, I mean, sometimes it starts like Drift. I don't know if you heard the intro. It's like da 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 da, that whole thing. Like,
yeah, oh yeah,
like
beautiful.
that. The song started based with that, and then everything else kind of just. Alan, our keyboard player, came up with the skeleton, and then I threw bass on it, and then all the production came kind of after all those, you know, cool little after effects. Those are all, I think, Ivan's doing. Like, he's amazing with like adding layers to the music. So I gotta give those guys credit for that.
Ivan. I could see a guy with a name like Ivan. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
He very much radiates that aura.
How you doing, Ivan? What's the other guy's name again? I'm sorry.
His name's Alan.
Alan and Ivan. Rock and roll, guys. You guys are doing a kick-ass job. It takes three to tango in this case, and I got to tell you, way to go. You guys are making the world proud with moving forward despite our very interesting remix situation that the whole world is going through. Nothing can stop you. You keep moving forward, and that is amazing.
Yeah, man.
Okay, I want to talk to you a bit about your other project, Intervals. Now, this project, right, has like a kind of a different vibe than Gia to me. It's kind of like mega syncopated riffs where you, in a lot of parts, you're totally locking up to the guitar parts. It's very sci-fi, futuristic, orchestra-like arrangements, and I also hear some kind of like, Japan kind of influence in my ears in there somehow. What are we dealing with here in this project?
So with Intervals, it's been a project since I believe 2011. I've been a part of it since 2017. So Aaron Marshall is like the mastermind between. He writes all the music and then sends it off to me and Nathan, and we contribute our parts to the music. Regarding like the influences to this latest record, I think we're listening to a lot of like synthwave. Like we listen to a lot of bands like The Midnight, a lot of the electronic music. I don't know if you've heard of this. Actually, he's from Montreal. His name is Anomaly. That's his artist name.
Okay.
He's an unbelievable composer and piano player. I know Aaron is like obsessed with like Sonic the Hedgehog and like those games. So a lot of those kind of vibes definitely are reflected in the music. We've been called like instrumental guitar music, right? I think the reason why I love being part of the project so much, and the music, I love contributing what I do to it, because it's not like guitar music. I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. Like Aaron,
well, it's orchestral. It's very orchestral in its approach. You know what I mean?
Right.
I find.
But what I mean is that it's not written by like a guitar player. It's written from a songwriter's point of view. That's why I feel like I'm drawn to it so much, is because it's not just some guy soloing over a chord progression for 4 minutes and calling it a record. It's it's like well-structured songs with the album has a lot of like callbacks and motifs to it too. But that's what I think is my favorite part about it, is that it's like it's not just guitar music. There's so many moving parts, and if you take one of them away, the whole thing falls apart.
When I listen to that, because like a bass player in general, especially in that project, when it comes to holding down the root of what's going on and then adding some variants, so that the stuff can kind of dance around that between the bass and the drums, and you're getting a solid foundation to create some kind of 3D environment, okay? But this, right, for long stretches, you're sitting there locking in with the guitar. Reminds me of like old school. In the old days, they used to take guitar riffs and they would take like a bass 6, and they called that tic-tac, right? So you would follow the riffs, the guitar riffs, with a bass that wasn't like a giant sounding bass, just gave it this extra little kind of thing. It was called the tic-tac sound. But this is like the next level again, futuristic approach. Long stretches of connecting with all instruments playing the same notes. Just those parts on their own are practically more complex than anybody's regular solos, I find. You know what I mean? And when the solos do come in, then you get to hold down that thing and you get that 3D, three-man band kind of opened up kind of thing that I love.
With the interval stuff and with anything I get hired to do or any project I'm a part of, like I'm a bass player first. So I come up with parts that, I know serve the song, right? And as you were talking about, like, when we do those like moments where I double what Aaron's doing, those about 80% of the time come in after I'm like satisfied with the bass parts. And then those little unison moments are kind of like little like tongue-in-cheek things that I think give the listener like the impression like, okay, cool, the band's like listening to each other and they're vibing off each other. And I think it's something that's really, really easy to overdo a lot. So that's why it doesn't happen in every song, but it's definitely tricky, especially with some of those runs. But I think it just varies on what the song calls for. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But I gotta say, man, this builds what I call Mr. Tight. Like, you have no choice. When you do shit like that, you don't need no drums, you don't need nothing. You're sitting there playing by yourself, unplugged, and you're still going to sound like you're locked to a freaking drum machine, at least, you know what I mean? I've been playing against drum machines, which I like to call a click with benefits and personality.
And dude, I've never heard that before. I love that.
And the wonderful thing about it is you can play to one of those things, and as long as you're on grid, you know that you can change it later, add the passes later. You don't give a shit. It's a lot more fun to play to that than to just a regular click.
Right, and that's the thing with like playing like, I guess the complex, really fast, like slap stuff. Like I get a lot of questions about how to build up that speed or how to build up that consistency. And what I tell my students or people who are asking about it is that like what I would do and the way I got to that point was I would just put on a click and I would just put on like Netflix or whatever show I'm watching and I would just practice that to a click, just mind-numbingly for like maybe like a half hour at a time. But before I would get to that point, like I would open up Pro Tools and just work and just look at the grid and make sure that I'm playing on the grid, because a lot of these fancy techniques, slapping, double thumbing, double popping, all these cool party tricks, like it's, they're really cool. And I mean, I'm calling them party tricks and I do them in almost every song. But like, if you don't practice to a metronome, they are useless. Like, and that's my thing. Like you can, and I learned this because from experience, like I joined this really complex band when I was about 19 years old. And I was good, I got into music school. I was good, air quotes if people are listening. But I got into the studio. We started recording a song that I wrote, and I was just all over the place, timing wise. And that was like a huge wake up call to me. Like, wow, like you can play. Like it was, and that was the thing where like I just kind of realized from that being. I was embarrassed, man. It sucked. Oh
my god.
The thing I realized was that you can play the notes, but if you don't have good time, it's just notes. They don't do anything. They don't, like, it sounds horrible. So that was my whole thing, is like with this metal music and there's pocket in the interval stuff for sure. And like in a lot of the stuff that I do, like we make sure that there's, it sounds real. But if you can't play to a click and you can't play to these slaps, the slap stuff to a click, and you don't have like good control, then it's useless.
Oh my God, dude. You're bringing back you just brought me back to a serious flashback to one of your first stories where you realized, oh my God, what's happening here?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in my very early 20s and I got to finally play with like an all black band, and I was like the only white guy in it, right? And I was saying to myself, okay, now I've gotten there. This is amazing. I'm like the only white guy here. I'm gonna get to play some funk. I'm gonna get to do some stuff. And there's the leader of the band was this keyboard player that actually had 6 fingers on each hand, and he had 6 toes on each hand. Anyway, so we start playing, and I was so excited and so pumped up, dude, that I am going for it like a total rock guy. And then the guy just stops playing and he looks at me and he says this. He says, "Hey man, this is not Beirut." Right? He's basically telling me, buddy, you need to fucking back down. And that was a wake-up call for me too.
Yeah, man. Stuff like that will like build you up. Like, those experiences, for me anyway, they cut you, obviously, like you learn from them, but it's like I have this now like fear of like people I look up to, like my bandmates, and one of them just being like, yeah, dude, this is not sick. Like, so yeah, I mean, you learn from it, and you learn your place in a mix and in a band and in a live setting. So, these experiences, you just have to take the good out of them.
Oh, yeah. And being that tight too, I like to tell people, hey, guys, if you think you sound like shit, it's because you do. So what you got to do is fix it in real time. It's like what you were saying, you're going to sit there watching something and you're going to keep doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Some people will like keep doing things for a half an hour a day and they'll wait years for something for them to see a result. Oh my God, I'm finally better. Or you do it like right the hell away. And, I watch you play and the way you're doing stuff. It is so complex. What people don't understand is how to stay really clean between the notes and tight, in the beginning. And that's what you do. You're super clean in all your transitions. And a lot of bass players, before they figure that out, the silences, the notes you don't play, when you're going between the notes, you don't have like extra finger slop. You use your left hand as a kind of a break to mute some of the sound.
That's exactly right.
You bounce back and forth between your left and your right hand, and you're always kind of muting shit and letting it out to make all that shit really disappear and only play the notes.
I mean, it's definitely, like I said, like, I teach this a lot when people ask me like to slap and like, cause I play that big 6-string in the corner, like the big surfboard of an instrument. There's other techniques that go into like when you like do stuff like slapping or like playing fast, because there's 2 other strings you have to worry about. One thing that I like to call it is just like just zooming in. So like if you're learning a riff, like you learn the riff and you still get a lot of noise, just look at what fingers you're not using or what part of your hand you're not using. Like for example, like if I'm like slapping way up here, like on the higher strings, like I'm using like kind of like my forearm to mute the low B. And it's not even something that I was taught, because like I like in school, one of my teachers, and this was like another one of those experiences where I was like, shit, I suck. I studied with this guy named Anthony Vitti, who is basically like, he is like Marcus Miller. Like he is that good. He is that pocket is unbelievable. His slap technique is unbelievable. And he's the one who I learned my basic slap stuff from. And when I got to his class, like or our lessons, like he's like, yeah, you got to basically restart your whole slap technique because this is just completely not what I'm doing. Yeah, but I mean, I was like 19 or 20, and like I was still in school, and I was like, I want to get really good at this, so I'm just gonna listen to this guy because the proof is in the pudding. Like, listen to how he's playing. There's techniques like he showed me, like when I studied with him, but then stuff like putting my arm over like those, like using my forearm and stuff. That's just stuff that I'm just like, no one really showed me to this, and I'm sure other people do it. Yeah. But this is just my solution. If it works, then it works.
The forearm, I think for me, the forearm is like one of the most important set of breaks. Let go, open up. It's like a fucking small dam that you let. I play like a lot of 12 and 8-string basses, right? I know. So that really helps to calm down. You know what I mean? The extra vibrations that come in and out, and like you say, it's not really something that they could teach you, and you will hear about that. Like, I think it's also very important to play like, ghost notes or just little thuds that are not notes, which you do all the time, becomes more percussive and shit. That's something that kind of teach you, but all that, the breaking between the 2 hands and the arms and the wrist, this is key.
Yeah. And I just mean like, we play pretty technical stuff that, it's not, some of it is just like unexplored territory when it comes to playing it clean, because you can record a record and make it sound extremely tight with production and stuff, but then when it comes to replicating it live, there's a whole other thought process that goes into it. Like, how am I gonna get this to sound as tight as it does on the record? so that was my thing. And like when I joined Intervals, a lot of the bass was recorded by this extremely talented guy named Cam McClellan, who played bass for a band called Protest the Hero.
Okay.
And a lot of the stuff he did it's like he sent me the stems and it was just so cut up and like perfect. And I was like, how am I going to like replicate this live? So, I start, with the muting stuff and like, learning some of the runs differently, writing crazy music and like, and listening to it. It's like, it's really impressive, but then it's a whole other thing to be able to get it to sound convincing live. And I think there's another thing to be said about maybe like bands that sound exactly like the record. Cause I know a lot of people don't like that, So I think with Intervals live, you get this energy that you don't get on the record. Not to say go out and buy our record, but like there's definitely something.
Go out and buy their record, guys.
Yeah, Sarcadian, go get it. but yeah, there's definitely something special about the vibe we have with a live show. Me and the drummer. Our drummer is one of the most talented and musical drummers I know. His name's Nathan Bulla, and we play this crazy music, but after a while you kind of start to develop like that like pocket, even if it's like a crazy groove that's super syncopated, you can maybe like lay back on the beat or like humanize it a bit. I think that's a big thing that a lot of progressive metal bands are not really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to tell you, there's even another bonus thing about what you just said that I truly love and that I use to break new ground. When you go and you record something in a studio and you go and you lock all that shit in, and by the time you're done, and like you said, Buddy sends you some riffs and everything's like so cut up and pocket tight and it's sitting there. And then you have to learn that. I actually think that is probably one of the best lessons in life in order to make you that much better, even better the next time you come back in the studio. Because you've had to sit there and become that pocket, that tight, figure out how to take things that were controlled in a studio environment and drag that onto live. And I know how complicated that could be because all of a sudden you're on a big stage. You could feel like a pin in a freaking goddamn haystack. You know what I mean? And even the monitor sound is going to dictate how well you hear yourself, even how tight you're going to be. So being able to transduce from studio, figuring out that stuff live, it has probably made you even that much better of a bass player and creator faster than taking even years of lessons and playing, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, taking lessons is great. Like I have to give credit to all the amazing people I studied with. It definitely helped me like think outside the box. And if that makes sense, like when someone, like if Aaron sends me some crazy guitar riff or even when I have the riff already and I'm trying to compose my parts, sometimes the way I write these like crazy fills is like when I'm demoing my parts, I'll just do it like literally like, 3 or 4 notes at a time. I'll do a phrase. And then, after like 30 minutes, I have 1 2-second fill that I really, really like. So, but then after that, I'm like, okay, cool. This sounds awesome. How do I actually play that? So then what I get to do is like, play kind of like gymnastics on the fretboard and with my hand and like, okay, cool. So I'll do like a hammer on here and then a double thumb there and then, double pop there. So it kind of like, helps you think outside the box when you compose in little kind of like increments like that. So that's another thing that I like to do a lot, and there's a lot of that on the new Intervals record, like just little like fills that there's a song called Dose where the second verse the bass kind of just like goes off, and a lot of that was just composed by me just doing phrase by phrase, and then when it came time to go into the studio I learned it for real, but it took me out of my comfort zone because there's a lot of these little moments where I was like, okay, I can't really do that, where it's like double hit. I don't know. But it definitely
amazing.
took me out of my comfort zone.
That is amazing. Well, that's what I kind of mean. When you kind of find a way to surpass yourself technically, and then you're stuck learning your own stuff.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I love that because I always say when that comes to play is if you played it, then there's no reason why you won't be able to play it again. It's going to be way worse for a poor stranger to try and figure it out. But it came out of you, so it's got to be, for sure you can redo it, I
just meant like let's say I'm writing a fill, right? And that fill is like comprised of like a few different phrases. So I'll record one part of the phrase, and then I'll record another one, and then I'll record another one. And this is just for demoing purposes.
Of course, yeah.
So let's say that end of that fill, ends on like a down hit, right, with my thumb. And then the beginning of the next phrase also begins with like a down hit or something like that. That's like impossible. Like, or, for whatever.
I know exactly what you mean, dude.
So that's what I mean by thinking outside the box is like, okay, so this phrase will not work unless I do something else besides hitting with my thumb. So that's when double thumbing comes in or double popping or something like that. So finding a replacement and, again, that's what I meant by like thinking outside the box is like, okay, there's no physical way for me to play it how I recorded it. So when it comes time for me to record it for real, I spend time and actually, play some gymnastics on the fretboard. And that's how I, learn a lot of the stuff that I write.
Amazing, bro. Tell me about some of your favorite bands that are on your playlist these days that you like listening to.
Let me, I'll pull up Spotify. Let's see. So lately I've been listening to a lot of Bring Me the Horizon. Yeah, post-human survival horror. That album is unbelievable. A lot of Mac Miller, Flying Lotus, Deftones.
Oh, yeah.
Knocked Loose, Gideon, Architects. Let's see what else we got on here. There's an artist called the Midnight. They're like synthwave. I've been listening to a lot of them. Another guy, his name's Lo-File. He was in the band called Issues, but now he's like does his own like hip hop project. It's really sick. Listen to a lot of Imogen Heap. David Maxim, yeah. I don't really listen to a lot of metal unless I'm at the gym. Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff that inspires me isn't really that like heavy. Dirty Loops is another one that I've been listening to. Like some of the newer stuff that they put out is really sick. 1975, another great band. So yeah, those are the last couple of songs or last couple of bands that I've been listening to.
Amazing, dude. Dude, I'm going to check some of those bands out. I've never heard of some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely should.
How about some of those other kinds of music that isn't necessarily, say, related to your genre? I know that I go on these kicks where I like to listen to old Chicago records. Like, to me, like, believe it or not, when I listen to Saturday in the Park or 25 or 6 to 4, I still get like these hard flashbacks. And I can even go from like, Johnny Cash to the Bee Gees to Pink Floyd. And to me, what that does is it clears my mind so I can just learn to listen again and not think that everything I listen to makes me want to run out and write. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, some of the bands I mentioned, they don't really necessarily inspire me to write music. Some of them are just like, I just love driving and just listening to some of these guys. Like for example, like Mac Miller. I just love everything he does or did. Again, like Imogen Heap. She's just like kind of like an artist that I listen to and I'm just kind of just vibing and just like hanging out. It's some pretty advanced harmony in her music, so I guess that would pretty inspiring. But
you ever hear of the Budos band, dude? The Budos band comes from New York, I think. You ever hear of those guys?
No, I have not. Okay, what are they called? I'll write them down.
Dude, it's gonna fuck you up. The Budos band.
How do you spell it?
So Budos, I think.
Budos band. Gotcha.
And like again, this band has horns in it. It's instrumental band. It's a full instrumental band, and there's an organ player that plays like kind of it's almost got that creepy kind of monster sound shit. But one of the coolest things I have ever heard. Yeah. Take a listen to that, and you'll let me know what you think of that one day. One of my favorite bands, a very underground, totally cool band. I want to talk to you about your gear for a minute. First of all,
absolutely.
It's so freaking cool that you've adopted the whole digital possibility mix with all your, the analog organics. So I want to start with your bass. So you've been banging out on one of the nicest looking Dingwalls I've ever seen. There's so many basses out there, and when you're lucky enough to find your number one, I think then you're in business and the rest is in gravy, right? So just talk to me a bit about this awesome machine that I always see you with.
Yeah.
Wow, so, that white thing looks freaking crazy, dude.
Yes. So that's my main bass. So Dingwall was kind enough to let me come up with this finish idea. So the bass is a Dingwall Z3X 6-string, which is a model anybody can go out and purchase. And I played a Z3, and I've been kind of like not really struggling, but just trying to find my sound as like a bass player, especially in this genre. And I played a Z3 when we were in Japan, and it was just I fell in love with the neck and the overall, and I felt like the shape of the body fit me a lot more. So I approached Dingwall with the idea. I'm like, I would like to get like one of these custom ones. Like, what can we do? And they're like, just email us. And I was like, oh. They were so supportive about it. Like, they said, like, what would you want in the instrument? So it took me about like six months to actually think of what the finish and all that, and the woods and stuff. What I eventually settled on was this matte white finish with a black highlighted grain, and they matched the back of the bass to the black grain, so it's like a matte black back too. So I call it like the sexy Stormtrooper is the nickname I have for it now. It's got the Dingwall FDV pickups, dark glass preamp, swamp ash body, maple neck, and Wenge fingerboard. And yeah, it was just such an amazing process because, Dingwall makes these unbelievable finishes. And like, I kind of felt like, I'm like, should I just let them tell me what I should get? Or should I I have this idea, but I don't know if it'll look cool. But their finisher, Paul, who is just unbelievable, he was kind enough to take like a sample piece of swamp ash and like do a little sample of what it would look like. And it didn't even look anything like what the bass turned out to be. Like, it was not as like, it wasn't matte. It was just kind of like white with black grain. I was like, yeah, I think that'll look cool. And yeah, and it turned out to just be the most unbelievable instrument I've ever played. And I'm so grateful to be working with them. And I think the funniest part of it was my dad, who has just been like the biggest supporter of everything I do. When I told him like, hey Dad, like this company that I work with, like they're gonna make me my own bass, and he was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, what are you gonna what color? And I was like, white. And he was like, what? And he was like, why do you want they have so many cool finishes and so many cool things. Like, why do you want white? And I was like, just trust me, it's gonna be cool. And then when I finally got it and he saw it, he thought it was just as unbelievable as I did. So yeah, it's a really special instrument, and I'm so grateful to Sheldon, Paul, and Lauren Hill. You know Lauren, right?
Of course I know Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren is honestly one of my favorite people on the planet, and he had a big part in getting this thing off the ground for me. So I was super grateful to him too.
It's amazing. Yeah. Well, the Dingwall suits you particularly well. You did a fantastic collab job over there. Thank you. It's really part of your sound, and I could see that. I know how low you can get those actions and whatnot, and those kind of banjo frets and stuff without all the buzzing and shit. So it's got to be really good to let you get precise and not have all this extra flap and this digging in that you don't have to do when it comes to being that precise, right? Yeah, I mean,
I have pretty low action, but it's some people who have played it said it's like higher than they would think, because like again, my action is very low, but I still have a little bit of give in it. So when I play all those, because I play pretty hard. Yeah. So I like to have a little bit of fight in the instrument, so you can play those like, really loud, like, those really hard slap notes and really like dig in, because that's, if your action's super low, and I know a lot of guys who like,
it'll bottom out. It's going to bottom out on your frets.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. You're going to lose all that, all the mojo. So, I love the action. I haven't touched the neck since I've had the bass, and I've had it for about a year now. So
it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy the way, I've had an NG2 for like about, I don't know, 4 years, and I've never had to touch the neck.
Yeah, and it was more so like I'm afraid because it's just perfect, and I don't really have it. Yeah. So I
get so paranoid, dude, when somebody, I have a lot of instruments, and I have to have a tech to come to my house to spend like 2 days to go through my shit with me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking like 2 8-hour days. And whenever even he's changing strings or shit, I start to say, oh, fuck, did I do the wrong thing? Because I've changed strings on an instrument before, and everything went haywire. Like, dude. Like it's like, oh God, I should have never changed these strings. Yeah, they were sounding a little bit dead, but they sound so good when I record with it. And shit, what was I thinking? Yeah,
I mean, it happens. I mean, for me, I have to change strings because with this genre of music, like that brightness of the strings is so important. Yeah. So, I mean, the way I change strings, I just do. I never take off the whole set unless I'm cleaning the fretboard, which I never do because I'm lazy. But I always do it one string at a time. So, hopefully the action stays as close to where it does. Yeah, and it does, dude. These things are and that's one of the reasons why I liked the finish too. It's like the bass is like going off what we were talking about regarding the necks and stuff. They're built like tanks. They don't move. My first show, like I took that bass to India. That was the first show I played with it. I went like this one of a kind instrument. I was like, nah, I need to play a show. I'm just going to India. I'm gonna take it. But like the reason why I chose like the finish I did, one, because it looks awesome, but two, it's like just one of those things where it looks amazing. It's flashy, but not. It's still like classy, and also like if you get a ding in it, if it gets a little bit of like road rash, like it's not like you're destroying like some beautiful
laminated killer finish.
Yeah, exactly. That's not saying the finish isn't killer, because I love this finish, and if I was ever to get like another bass, I would just do another iteration of this colorway, like some other color with highlighted grain, because I think that's gonna be I kind of want that to be my thing. But I think it's just the thought behind it was not just because it looked awesome, it's because you can kind of take it wherever and not be afraid to like go ape shit, like, and that's one of the reasons why I love the NGs, and that's why I played them for so long, is because like you can take them out on the road and just beat them, and they're like, yeah, no, we're still good. Let's go round 2. So that's one of the reasons why I love the NGs, and obviously all of my basses have their fair share of road rash, even the white one, but they wear them well. That's what I'll say.
Well, they wear well. They actually wear well. Some people are going to pay a lot of money to have a beat up instrument, right? And it's weird because like you have these like Dingwalls that you have like the whole like Lamborghini aesthetic with, but and if you dent a Lamborghini, someone's going to get upset. Yeah. But like on these, like I kind of again I don't welcome it, but I think it's okay. And especially on the white one, like if it gets a little ding, like you have a matte black finish, and the white, it's just kind of like you're not really going to see it. And, it's again, like you're not destroying some like, you like Sistine Chapel wood grain, like, yeah. Oof, dude, I remember when I was, I bought an original Spectre.
Dude, those are sick.
When I was like, I don't know, I must have been like 17 or 18. And I remember in those days, I paid $1,400 for it. Now, it was an NS1, dude, like a P bass. One EMG pickup, all jet black, beautiful, looked like a shark. Fucking perfect.
Was that the one that had like the horns that like they both went like they were like sharp kind of horn? Like, because I know Spectre kind of changed their design in like the 90s, I think. But like I remember Gene Simmons used to play a bass that looked like the one you described.
Okay, well, no, actually, what you're talking about, I had one of those too. Mm-hmm. Actually, the guy who gave me that bass basically told me, he said, hey, look, this used to be Al Di Meolo's bass player, and the guy had fucking carved a goat head, right, on the fucking top bout over here, and then it came with the matching big-ass silver ring. And the guy who gave it to me says, when you play this bass, you got to wear this ring, right? So, but that's the bass you're talking about. No, the one I'm talking about that I bought for $1,400 looks exactly like what you think a Spectre looks like today. Mm-hmm. Body was a bit smaller and way more curved, and it had one pickup in it, like a P-bass pickup.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Right now, if I still had that bass, I'd be able to sell it for at least 10 G's. But the point is, black, shiny, gloss. I'll always remember when I'm sitting in my practice and I'm banging away on the thing and I had a ring on it, and all of a sudden I take my first chunk right out of the front of the body.
Man.
I sat there, I put it on the stand, and I looked at it from every angle for so long. And I was
you're just
so
like,
upset.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
You can't sleep. You can't shit, man. I was saying, what the fuck did I just do? I'm an asshole, But then you get over it, and it goes in. The first ding is the hardest.
Yeah, I did, dude. I there's a microscopic thing on a microscopic little dent on the white one that I got the first day I got it, because I put my strap on and my strap has like these little buckles on it, on the back of it, so where you can
And
adjust
it just hit it. It
and it just hit
dink.
yeah, and it's like, and I heard it, so I'm like, I bet it's. I really hope I didn't like ding it. And I look, it's literally like the size of like, I don't know, it's like not visible, but if you look at it, it's there. But I literally like my heart sunk to my stomach, and I'm like, dude, you just got this bass today, and but yeah, there's no other like it flew to India, it's been around the States, all over Canada, nothing else, just that one day where I got to it.
Come on,
not
dude.
like I can't blame it on my tech, I can't blame it on someone at the venue, like that was all me, and like yeah, but again, like that's
What
the thing
about
the bass.
like a case bite, right? You know, like if you have your case open and let's say you reach out to pull out the bass real fast, and all of a sudden the top kind of falls down and there's that little tooth that comes out and then bang, and it takes a big chunk out of your bass. That's happened to me a couple of times when I was younger, and I'm very careful now.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta like mentally prep for it. Like when I opened the case, the first thing that came out of my thought was like, okay, this thing is perfect. I love it with all my heart. It is going to get dinged at one point. Accept this. And then I picked it up.
Oh, right now I'm hearing that song, the first cut is the deepest. It like looping in my head, but we're changing the lyric to the first dent is the deepest. Oh yeah, it's crazy. Let's talk about plugin for a minute, because we're both users, endorsers of the one and only Dark Glass, and you've been tripping with neural products a big time.
Yes.
Going back like several years, plugins were still sounding like you were getting an ice pick jammed to the side of your brain, but today, guitar and bass, it's really going to a place where I can actually see the big amp thing completely disappearing like the vinyl and the cassette did. And you happen to be pretty damn good at it. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of my videos, it's like I'll come up with like a demo tone, and then I'll send it off to the guy who actually films me and mixes it, and then he'll kind of base the tone off of that. But I mean, the reason why I like the neural stuff and the reason why I like the parallax so much is that, like, when I'm dialing my sound, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. You don't lose the characteristic of your instrument, whereas in a lot of other distortions, they're not as focused, or it's just like, you don't have as much control over it. That's kind of what I go for when I'm using the parallax or like the Dark Glass plugin, is that like I want that characteristic of my instrument. Like I want you to be able to hear the pop or like the plucking of my fingers. Like that's kind of what I go for, and it varies, depending on the session, but like especially on this last Intervals record, it's all parallax, and there's maybe one song that has the Dark Glass, but and I've seen people commenting on it. It's like, this is the dirtiest but smoothest bass tone I've ever heard, and it's because of that. We dialed in something that's aggressive and punchy but focused, and I think that's my goal for a tone.
Wow, yeah, it's amazing because some people they just can't understand how powerful the plugins have gotten.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd.
I mean, I just love it, man. Especially when you have a bunch of basses and you can take each bass and save different presets with the name of that bass.
Yeah, and there's no more reamping too.
No reamping, no shit. You go and plug in, you could just switch bass, pick your fucking preset, and have the same bass with like completely different sounds just because of the way you saved and adjusted that preset, which is amazing. It's instant workflow. You know what I mean?
I mean, and I love the Dark Glass stuff. Like, and Lauren just started working at Neural DSP, so I don't feel bad if I use Neural DSP stuff live anymore. But I've been using the Dark Glass stuff live for years now, and I think the goal is, and I feel like it's okay to say this because Doug, the main guy, Doug Castro, he is the head of Dark Glass and Neural. But my goal is, like, I would love to just nix all the pedals in a live setting and go right to the quad cortex. Like once that's ready for bass, I think that's where me and Aaron have talked about it. Like that's kind of what our goal is for when we get back to playing live shows, is that get the whole band on like quads, or because I know Aaron's running the Axe FX3s, which are great too. They're two separate tools, but I think, for me personally, I definitely just want to get on like one floor unit and like, have that, and again, because on this new record we have, it's not like I can get away with one sound live. I actually love that, where I don't have to touch my pedal board the whole show, so I could just focus on the show. But on this new record, we have, there's some more clean sections, and a lot of the choruses in songs called, like, we have this song called Dose and a song called Earthing. And there's actually a stereo doubler on the bass to give it this really wide, warm, like chorusy effect.
Yeah.
And I would just love to just be able to just program that into our laptop and just have the MIDI go into the floor unit and just trigger it. So I think that's where my head's at regarding like the plugin stuff. I have absolutely no issues just going full on neural. And and I love the Dark Glass stuff. Like they make unbelievable products too, and I love making demos and I love using their stuff live. But just from a travel standpoint, where just thinking like logistically, like instead of taking like a bunch of pedals and like a pedal board, like have everything just concised into this. I guess it's the size of a pedal board, but just having this one little floor unit that has your whole show just programmed in it is
Dude, that is so freaking. Nobody's going to be able to argue with that shit. It's over.
That
is the future. It is the future. Period.
I think so. And again, like the Dark Glass stuff, it's amazing, and like I love everything they put out, and I will continue to use it. But from a touring musicians who, I know there are pedal guys, there will always be pedal guys. Like I'm a pedal guy, but for someone who I just want to like sit down and play and just have the show happen, like, and for consistency's sake, that's kind of what I think where my head's at. Like I know Simon Grove uses the Simon, he plays for Pliny, like unbelievable bass player and producer. Like he uses he is like a religious user of the Line 6 Helix. And I would have gone that route, but I've been pretty comfortable with like using my Dark Glass little pedal board. Like I have like my the Hyperluminal going into the X Ultra, and my cab sim just goes right to front of house, and then through the other output we just go right to my Mesa cab on stage, and that's been my rig for the last couple of years. But again, I think perfect world, I would love to just use the quad cortex.
Well, you're right. And that, if anybody's going to do a new style, fantastic job at bringing together, like the Line 6 and the also the other guys that are putting out those kind of boards, it's going to be Doug. I use their amps, and what I love doing is I don't even plug it into a cab. I'll sit it up here on my desk. You got 3 different cab sims that you can pump into that thing. It's so dynamic that if you set it right, depending on how hard you're hitting, your thing could be completely clean, and then you start digging in, and in comes the distortion.
Yeah.
And then I hook up all their other pedals to the front end of that thing and dial in different sounds on, the B7K, the Alpha Omega, the harmonic booster, all those pedals. So you have, I got 8 different sounds with all their pedals that I can pick coming through the amp and that speaker sim. And then I'll put in some delays and reverbs into the effect send and return. And this shit's just going straight to tape, straight to track. You got to be a buffoon to think that you're going to be able to take your SVT and, mic it up, crank it out, record this shit. Then you're going to have to recompress the shit anyways. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this way, you're that much closer to what I consider to be a finished sound.
Absolutely.
That's the thing about mixing, right? There's 2 philosophies. We'll fix it in the mix, or
fix it at the source.
Let's get it as close to the finished product with leaving a bit of headroom so we can have some masterability and shit happening in there, right?
Absolutely, man. And I actually saw an interview that Aaron did for Neural DSP when they were talking about final tones for the record. And when they were going through, when they finished tracking everything and they were going through like, they were like, okay, we should go to final tone. We should like try to find our final tones now. And then they were like, oh wait, these are pretty perfect. And like, because usually you track the record with whatever tones you have, and then you go in and spend like hours and hours or even days reamping, right? But like with the neural stuff, then because the whole intervals record is all neural DSP. So there was no reamping or anything like that. That's all just, it's just weird. You're not used to like that much time. Like, it's just so easy now.
Look, it's like the 4-track syndrome. You know what I mean? In the old days, you do the demo, and then they're trying to make you go back and re-record it in a 24-track, and then all of a sudden it freaking sucks.
Yeah,
it's
you lose
sterile.
it. Yeah, you lose it.
Same thing for these kind of tones, and that's what I think is so fantastic about, like I come from those days where people would spend like 4 or 5 days on just mixing a kick and a snare and a shit, and it was like, oh man, I want nothing. This is like creativity killer. You know what I mean? And
you just start over analyzing.
Oh yeah, I have an interesting philosophy right now, and I just don't care what anybody thinks about it, but this is it. Everything I do has to happen in my first take, and if something happens, it can never happen unless in my second take, and that is what I use. There will be no re-recording. There will be no thing. Every song I do is written in real time. There is no thinking. There is no shit, because I've just seen too much, and there's no way, you know what I mean, that I can put up with people who want to sit there and over-tweak, under-tweak, fucking do it like this, do it like that, y'all. I mean, that's not music, you know what I mean? And you go back to the old days, your favorite bands, the ones that started it all, where everybody is imitating and emulating from there on to now, these guys were banging out entire records within the week. You know what I mean? Done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And too many possibilities gives you too many possibilities. And really, what do we want? A killer bass sound. So find yourself, find who you are, and then you're going to know what your sound is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Your favorite attributes that bring it together.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that whole thing where it's like, you can fix it in the mix, or you can have an amazing like or start with an amazing sound, you know what I mean? And again, like that goes back to, like, I know it's kind of off topic, but like that goes to like why I love the Dingwall so much, is because like your source is like unbelievable. Like the DIs from them are it's like incomparable. There's no cleaner DI I've ever played. But yeah, going back to the record stuff, I definitely respect the whole one take thing. I don't think that would really work for me. I think a lot of the stuff I would do it.
I get it. I get that.
But I respect that, and I think I could use that mentality a bit more in my recording process, because I overthink everything when I track, and I overanalyze a lot of what I do, which is good in some sense, but sometimes I feel like it's a bit hindering because I spend time on a lot of things that I could just kind of be like, nope, this is good enough. But I definitely respect that mentality.
It's an interesting look. It's a really interesting approach. Mm-hmm. And it's not like a guy like you doesn't have the technical knowledge or the chops to do that stuff. It's a mental state, right? So, I mean, if I was to look at you, what I would do as a producer, I would say, okay, my friend Jacob, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pretend we're on a freaking game contest, and I'm going to tell you that by 6 o'clock tonight, you're going to wake up at 9 o'clock, you're going to have a record, an EP finished. I'm not going to put too much pressure on you. 5 songs. So when you say that, you have a choice. You know what it takes. You need a beat, you need a bass line, you need a complementary part. It could happen with just 3 things, right? And I'll be nice and I'll give you one extra overdub to add some melting shit to kind of melt all the transitions and shit together.
Right.
There's no way that you can't do that. And the fact of thinking like that, what that does is it gives you a free flight thing, right? Mm-hmm. I like to look at it as I've jumped off a cliff, no parachute. Most people will die, but dying is not an option. So you're gonna fucking land on your feet. And you know what I mean? And when you think like that, for sure you're gonna do things that you never would do. And here's the trick. You did that much more by dinner time. And now, because you've been so cool and so nice about it, I now give you another day to go and polish it all up. That still means that you've done it in 2 days. You understand? So
no, it makes sense.
There's a thing. It's like vocals. I recorded some of the biggest vocalists and a lot of vocalists for so many years. And you would be surprised as to how much chopping and cutting goes on for, amazing vocalists where...
I don't think I would be surprised.
Okay, well, the one that took me over the edge is the day that I took a killer singer and I had to record 200 motherfucking tracks to wind up getting a good lead and a double. Okay, and that freaked me out so bad that from that day on, I looked at singers and say, here, let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm giving you 2 takes. If you can't sing this song killer in 2 takes, get the fuck out. I don't want to see you till you know how to sing it and pretend you're on fucking David Letterman or somebody and you have no rewind, right? And if you do that good, I'll be nice and I'll give you a third track as long as you gave me 2 good tracks. Maybe even a 4th, but that's it. You're not getting 8 tracks. You're not doing that shit. This fucking lead's coming out in these 2 tracks, or you should come back another day. This really opens up room for what you already understand about total precision. Fuck. Turn your fucking switch on or go fucking change your switch,
Yeah, man. I definitely, it's a pretty extreme approach, but I absolutely agree with the mindset.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with
Use it however, it could be used in whatever capacity the person will. What you said is perfect. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
And mindsets are what help you.
We've definitely did that, like recording the intervals record, for example. It's more so like we record the song in bits, right? And like there's a bunch of like little moments on the album where it's like, oh, there's a cool little bass moment. And like for me, like I can record riffs all day. Like if you want to just one take a riff, I'm fine with that. Like I know it sounds good in the mix because it's just the bass is complementing the guitar well. But if the bass is isolated, that's when I start to like overanalyze like really minute details. And that's when like the producer would be like, all right, yo, we got it. And like, I'll just be like, no, one more. And that could go on forever. So at some points I think I would actually need someone like you to just be like, yo, like, no, like you're done.
I had my bro Quentin Berry, who's you ever see that guy? He plays his bass on the shoulder, fucking upside down.
Oh yeah, he plays a Spectre.
Yeah, this guy's fucking out of control. I got to do a song with him last year, a really cool thing. But anyways, he was telling me that he used to do a lot of stuff for like the P. Diddy people and stuff. He was like part of that crew. And he found out later on that when they used to just call him to go to the studio, they would just say, oh no, just jam, just play any riffs you want, right? So he would go in there and like what you just said, oh, if you want me to bang out a bunch of riffs, no problem, right? And then he would just leave. But the amount of hit songs that were written around the bass and fucking drums that he would bang out on a one session shot, right? And that's what I'm talking about. That's where the magic lives. That's when you have an overthought about, oh, is this right? Is this radio friendly enough? Is this this? Is this that? And you play from deep within in a different way because you're always playing from deep within. You love doing what you're fucking doing,
right.
But that mindset, there's a small difference about saying, where's these hit riffs that you can't get out of your head? That's how I like to look at it,
Yeah, definitely.
And amazing. How are you handling the New World remix? I would imagine that because you're already hip to the whole video, personal branding, self-sufficient bass player stuff, that the smack in the face is not as hard and won't leave as much of a red mark as if you didn't know how to do any of these things, right?
I mean, the mark is pretty red, but for being serious, like our plan was to take a little less than a year off to write a record.
Timing's good then.
I had other plans, like I had other bands I was going to go out with. I had a lot of stuff that, in the pipes. I was supposed to go to do clinic tours and stuff like that. Creative people, we make a living off this. Like, it just kind of forces you to be more creative. So what I was doing, when I would go on tours, I would teach lessons. And in between tours, sometimes at home, I would just teach lessons just as just another source of income. And it's become my main source of income now. Like, I have around probably over like 15 students, like consecutive, like weekly now. And that's been my, I found something that it's like a new passion of mine that I love doing. I love teaching. And so I've had my teaching companies like Dingwall and Neural DSP and Dark Glass, who I do the videos for. I'm super grateful to them because that's definitely been a help for me. I've also been lucky enough because I do a lot of session work. I've worked over the quarantine. I've recorded records. I did the Intervals record. I recorded bass for an artist. His name's Hedros Ramos. He's a guitar player. There's a band called Interloper, who is, there are a couple of guys who were in a band. It's called Rings of Saturn and The Faceless, and it's their project. So I recorded for them. Yeah, I think I've done at least maybe 10 records maybe since the quarantine. So I've been busy. You have to be busy. You can't be bored. And even if you're like doing well, like even if you have a job, it's still easy to get bored because you're stuck in your house. So there's, you have to find things to just make you stimulate you. I'm fortunate enough to where I teach every day and I, have people at home and stuff like that. So I've been lucky enough to have that, but I know there's people who are just going crazy during these times, and it's a huge bummer. And even if you are doing well, even if you have sources of income, but you're in a band and you can't tour, a big chunk of all of our hearts have just been ripped out, and there's a big hole in all of our hearts. And the main thing with me has just been the uncertainty, because and it's just so. The reason why it's fucked for me is because I was on our last tour, we were talking about the new record, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna record on this one, because this I joined Intervals when the last record came out, so the bass was already done. So this year I was like, oh, the new record, I'm gonna be on this one. This is gonna be, I get to play my own parts. This next year of touring is gonna be amazing, and it's just it hurts, just not being able to do what you love. And even, we find ways to kind of give the fans what, something we're all of us in Intervals, we're doing individual playthroughs of the whole record. So that's what I'm in the process of doing now. But even when I'm learning the music, I find that there's certain moments where I just get a bit choked up. I'm like, man, I just want to play this live. This section would be so sick. The crowd would be just jumping, or I'd get everybody clapping, and it's just, and it really I'm not just saying that to joke around. It actually you feel that pit in your stomach where it's man,
yeah, it's a deep.
It's really messy. Yeah,
it's a deep,
it hurts,
deep
man.
feeling that people can't even really quantify yet, because it's one thing about feeling bad for yourself or your family, but when the whole world is feeling this, you feel the weight of the whole planet. That's what happens to me. I feel so bad for the world and the families and the business. I mean, this stretches out so wide.
Yeah, and again, I'm just talking about from the music standpoint, but there's so much uncertainty, and people who are listening to this at home with their families, if you're safe and healthy, you're lucky. Yeah. And it's so weird, man. It's such a weird thing. I never thought I would no one thought this would happen. No one, thought 2020 was just going to be another year. But, the world's changed forever. And
but knowingly or unknowingly, right? People set themselves up for what is coming, even though they don't know it's coming yet.
Sure.
So you have put in this kind of work that has kind of given you these extra tears to be able to still make stuff happen, even though you didn't know this was going to happen. I mean, the same thing happened to me. I'm actually busier now than I've ever been before this even happened, because
that's amazing.
I'm savvy on the web. I'm making relationships is absolutely key. You know what I mean? And being the top of yourself at your own game. You're at the top of your game and moving forward because you're a 360 individual. You know what I mean? You're not just monophonic. And that being said, what kind of advice or inspiration could we give coming from you as a young, upcoming, moving forward at so many levels for these people out there that want to move forward in music, in art? What could you say to these guys to give them a little extra pat on the back and go for it?
Just don't be afraid to put your art into the world, just even if it's a good question, man. For me, with Gia, like I hadn't put my own music out into the world in like 5 years. So and it's hard. So I would just say, like, if you're passionate about it, put it out into the world. And, even that is something to be proud of. And
skill sets, right? Improve your skill sets. Even if you don't have music yet to put it out, like work on becoming what you've always wanted to become, right? Exactly.
And it's kind of like one thing that my dad would always tell me. He always just pushed me. And the one thing that I always think of is, and it's kind of weird to think of, but like he would always just tell me, like, no matter how hard you're practicing, there's always, like, when you're sleeping, there's going to be someone who's practicing or, working just as hard as you, or if not harder. So just keep always just push yourself, And one thing that I learned is, like, there's always going to be someone better than you or someone who can do something better than you. So just use that as motivation. Don't be bitter about those types of things, like grow from them. Don't just, because someone's successful at doing something that you want to do, but you don't think, it's weird to say, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of people just be bitter about people's success, and instead of just like growing from it or learning from what they've done,
Now, my friend, that is truly one of the world's biggest lessons. There's no real notes attached to that. It's not a scale. It's a fact that if you are happy for other people's success, then you could learn from that, and that takes you up. Being angry for other people's success is 1,000% a brake that stops you from moving forward, because you're too worried. Oh, fuck this guy. Look, this sucks. And, that fucking amazes me, actually, especially on bass forms. When you see other bass players tearing a new hole to another bass player who actually destroys his ass. Right? Yeah. And you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, we're all on the same bus. We're all bass players here. Why the heck would you do this? Say this in an open form.
And that's another thing that I'll say to kids who are, whatever. People who are trying and aspiring to do, in the music industry. Because especially in this genre of music, like this progressive, I don't know what it brings out in people. But there are so many people who are just putting other people down. I don't know, like it's so disheartening, like and so one thing I learned is, like, I used to put up covers when I was 16 or 15, and and I didn't have a following, I was a teenager, but I would read these comments, and some of them were good and some of them were like, oh, you could be better at this, or like this sucks. Your shirt is stupid. Stuff like that, like really. And okay, so my point being that now that I have a bit more of a platform and I get more people following me, those comments come in, sometimes more often than they used to, But what I've learned is that, like, just don't pay attention to them, because odds are they're just somebody who's just, has that bitter attitude. And if you go on their page, they're,
nothing.
Like, they're nothing. They're nothing, dude. And that's what I wish I could have told myself when I was younger, like looking at people's comments on my, playthroughs. It's like, these people are nothing, and they are just like, they're people you just need to like step over. And
that's so sad, dude. When I see that too, I feel so bad, I try and change those people. Last week I learned my lesson on that for the last time, because I'm the guy that when I see somebody say a bad thing, right, I try and change them. So I'll write them back. I'll say, oh, I'm terribly sorry you feel offended like this. Maybe this is not your style of music, and I wish you the absolutely best luck in whatever it is you love.
Yeah, dude, kill him with kindness.
right? And then when they come back with an even another smack, right? I try and go again. Come on, bro. You know, and then I'll look up their Facebook. I see them like holding their kid, smiling with their wife, and I'm seeing that the guy's like 65 years old, and then I say, whoa, what are you doing? Sitting there in your underwear, just going on forums and bitching people to make you feel alive, you know? And it's not my job.
That's my thing, man. It's just like people coming up, like, don't let people like that discourage you. Like, it's nothing. Like, and yeah, that was a big thing for me, is just like, you know, ignoring that like negative energy, because it's the people who are projecting it, they're nothing, you know?
Especially more now so than ever, because so many more people are on the internet than ever before.
Oh yeah.
And if this becomes their, you know, their major diet, right? Because you are what you eat, but you are what you watch, you are who your friends are, you are what you think. And when you're looking at all this thing and you're blending in the different kinds of information that actually has nothing to do about music. Like, you know, if you weren't thinking the way you were, you might be writing nothing about dark songs about like the situation that's going on right now. And you're not that guy, right? So some people, you know, anyways, you're right. Guys, I'm telling you, what we're talking about here is one of the most important things. Is being happy for others' success has always been, I was actually brought up like that, as I know you were. You know, it's very important. Jealousy gets you nowhere, and bitching at somebody that you don't know or that is actually in a higher situation that you are doesn't serve you any purpose. As a matter of fact, you would need to become an alliance with this person, because you're stronger with that person than you are without. Even if it's a digital friend, a digital connaissance, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
That's what's the most important thing. And moving forward, guys, I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely, man.
Tell me something. What the heck do you do when you're not playing bass? Any kind of freaky things that you trip out on? Or are you just like one of these music guys no matter what happens?
No. I'm a big fitness guy. I really like, I'm not like a, you know, a gym rat or anything like that, but that's just one of those things where like, I just go to the gym and work out, and it's just like kind of just like a zen space in my head. So I'm super big into fitness, and it's awesome because Aaron, about a year ago, got really into it. So now I have a gym buddy on tour.
Nice.
So that's something I'm pretty passionate about. I'm a big horror movie fan, so I'm like one of those psychopaths who can just sit down and watch like a terrifying movie and just like be like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
When we're on tour, I usually wake up first and like I'll go exploring. I used to like skate a bit, but that's not really a defining character trait. So I would say, yeah, that's pretty much
exploring too. Exploring says a lot about you as well, because you know exploring means that you're ingesting, especially when you're on tour. Obviously, you're getting different kind of cultural inputs, getting to experiment everything from different foods to different lifestyles to different ways of thinking. And I got to tell you, all these things you mentioned, when I hit you with the fact of you are what you eat, you are what you think, I can clearly see, even from what you just told me now, how this crosses over to your style of playing, which is, again, very precise, very sharp. There is no flit or flatter. There is no in between or after slop. It is super.
We hide that. We have good ways of hiding that.
Yeah. We got noise gates on everything. You'll
Yeah,
never hear
dude,
anything.
Yeah. I wish there was an actual like noise gate for like life. That would be my favorite thing.
Dude, I remember when I first discovered the noise gate years ago, right? And actually, like most people, especially when you're playing heavier shit, there's something about it locking down. As long as it's transient, you know, and you're going for that hard-hitting, calculating shit.
Dude, I'm
a big fan of fucking noise gates.
Oh, I'm a noise gate advocate for sure. Yeah.
You know, and to the point where I used to have this board where I had 40 pedals on it, and I had 3 levels of noise gates at different places, right? And I was able to turn every pedal on and just hold. I was a guitar and just hold my guitar like this with everything full. And I remember one of my friends from a big band came over, and then I went and I hit it, and the thing came out. And he just looked at me and says, "Holy shit, bro! Like, what the fuck is this?" You know? Where's the best place for people to check out everything that is Jacob Umansky?
You can either go to my website, which is just jacobumansky.com, or my Instagram, which is Jacob Umansky. My band's Instagram is at WeAreGia. And to check out intervals, you can just go to Aaron's Instagram, which is just Aaron Intervals. Yeah, that should just about do it for where you can find me or any of my lovely bandmates.
Right on, brother. Well, look, I want to thank you, man, for taking the time to trip out with me today. And I also want to wish you the absolutely best in your life and for all your musical endeavors and everything that you are doing. You are a very, very
Thank you, man.
nice guy with your head in the right place. And it's nice to see. You're part of the solution. What you're doing is going to be part of. You are one of but the one saviors out there that is going to change this entire music industry. It's going to take time, but you are at the forefront of being one of those guys that is going to open up the door for everybody else by proving that despite the situation, you are able to keep moving forward creatively and keep expanding your creativity, so.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that, dude. And this is actually my first podcast that I've ever been a part of. So you really, really set the bar, and so this has been absolutely amazing, dude. I'm so happy to be a part of it. And again, thank you to you, and thank you to Dingwall for having me.
Oh, my friend, it is my total honor. So guys, this is a wrap. You've been basing out with the one and only Jacob Umansky. I'm Momo, right here for the Dingwall podcast. And I want to wish you guys an amazing bass in your face kind of day. You guys totally rock. See you, Jacob.
Later, man.